Hello, Terry Duncan here with Cut, Color, and Create. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited because I have a really fun card to share with you today. It's a pop-up. I'll show you what it looks like here. So when you take it out of the envelope, it looks like this. And then that kind of gives you the 3D look. So to make that, we're going to use a couple of dies. This is just a 2 3/4 inch circle that we're going to need. And then another couple of items that have just come out in Spellbinders release are the Envelope of Wonder series. And there are a number of them that go along with this. The main one that you have to use with any of the others is this Envelope of Wonder because it has the envelope dies. And then I've got Autumn Wonder. So I'm going to use those two. Then I will probably use the Better Press coordinating set called Sentiments of Wonder. I'm thinking about using just a note to say thanks. Then there are some cardstocks that we're going to be using. The first is a sheet of HP Premium 30 pound. You don't have to have this exact cardstock, but you need a lighter weight to build the pop-up component. I've got one sheet of 80 pound Nina Classic Crest Solar White, and that's for the envelope. And what we're going to do is create a faux wood grain with that for the envelope itself. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Then I've already got my die cuts made. I have listed in my blog all of the Spellbinders cardstock that I used, but you can use scraps to do this with. In fact, I encourage you to. I've got a couple of my circles cut out and I'm going to show you how to do that, like I say in a bit. This is one of the My Sweet Petunia sticky mats, and it is perfect for keeping all your little die cuts in a way that you can see them. Then I've got a couple of inks that we're going to use for the wood grain. We're going to use Gina K Craft and warm cocoa. And then for coloring some of the die cuts, I've got Distress Oxides, peeled paint. Excuse me, I also use it for the grass for the pop-up. And I use peeled paint and gathered twigs for it. And then I also use Rustic Wilderness for that coloring. Then I did think a little bit of twine would be good for hanging the tag off of. We'll need some scissors. I'm thinking Mulberry Better Press ink is going to be perfect for the sentiment. So let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to break this down basically into 3 components. We're going to build the envelope, then we're going to build the pop-up, and then we're going to add the little die cut pieces. I like to do my blending on a piece of paper. I just have this pad from My Favorite Things. I like it because they all stick together. And I'm going to color my cardstock on this. So I do want to do it on 2 sides because you'll see that on this cover, we need it on 2 sides. And so I'm just going to fold this over. I'm going to use the warm cocoa and I'm going to use a direct ink to paper technique. That means I'm just going to take the pad and I'm going to just run it from one end to the other. I'm going to switch over to the craft just to make sure that it's not too dark. That's better. And you can see I'm just swiping. My lines aren't real straight, but it doesn't matter. And to really make it realistic, I'm going to turn it around and then swipe again down the other direction. And you see, I'm just making sure that I've got color. And I think I actually did use the warm cocoa. So I'm switching back and forth. The warm cocoa is what you want to use. And actually the combination doesn't look bad. I'm making this a little bit darker. Now, to make it even more realistic, I'm going to use a blending brush, and I'm going to take the craft and I'm just going to blend over that. See how it really brings the grain out. Okay. So what we're going to do next is just cut this sheet in half. Get this out of the way. And I'm just cutting that at 5.5 inches. And then I'm going to get out my dies. So I'm particular about the direction that the grain goes in. If you notice on my sample, I've got the direction of the grain going this way on this one and in towards the center for the sides and then across the back. So I want to do the same thing with these. You don't have to be as fussy about that if you don't want to be. There we go. So what we're going to do next is fold each of the items, the sides along the score. If you look carefully, maybe if I zoom in, you can see there are scores here along the sides, and then there's a score along the bottom of this piece, and there's a score for the cover. So I'm just going to help those scores along. I'm going to use a ruler, or I've got a T-square here, and I'm going to put it on the top side, so the opposite way that it needs to bend. And I'm doing this just so that lines right along the score. It just helps it along, and then I bend it the opposite way. And you can use a bone folder to help crease that, keep the crease nice and tight. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm just going to do it for each of these different pieces of the envelope. So I think I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and attach all three with some 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive tape. So I'm just going to, now you don't want it to go over the edges. Otherwise it'll stick in places it doesn't belong. Okay, and before I attach these, there's one thing that I want to do, and that is I'm going to take my ruler again, and I'm just going to measure. This envelope is 4.5 inches. So at 2 1/4, I'm going to make a little mark here, and I'm going to make a little mark up here. And then, or I could have just used my T-square, couldn't I? And I'm just going to faintly draw a line up through the center. And we're going to use that for the pop-up. That's why we're doing that. And I'll show you how in just a minute. So now I'm going to attach each of these pieces. Now, this one goes on last, so I'll put, or it folds up last. So I'm going to put the sides on first. There we go. So we've got our envelope completed. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to build our pop-up components. Now, I've got a couple of circles already cut out, Actually, I have 4, and I have a couple that are all ready to use. But I want to show you what I did so that you can repeat it yourself. So with these, this is using that 30-pound. You could use copy paper or a little bit heavier, a heavy copy paper. And I'm using the peel paint and gathered twigs. And I'm just going to very randomly add, actually, I think I used the rustic wilderness also. I'm just going to very randomly add some of that color. You can see if you crease it, it doesn't really matter because it's going to flatten out after we fold it up anyway. And you do this with all, you cut 4 circles and you're going to color each one of the 4. And this is intended to look like grass. Or kind of fade into the background, if you will. And that's it for our grass. So the next step for our pop-up is to take each of these 4 circles and we're going to fold them once in half and then in half again. And then one more time. So I'm going to do that one more time. We're going to fold it in half. And then half again. And then one more time. And you're going to do that with all 4 of your circles. Now, I wanted there to be a little bit of grass feel for it. If you see on mine, there's these little grass blades. And to do that, I just take my scissors and snip on the edges and just go about 1/4 of an inch. You don't have to do this. I just thought it added a little something to the pop-up. Okay, so the next step is you open up your little circles. And you cut along one of those fold marks. I usually pick one that isn't as folded as the rest. And then you're going to refold it. You're going to fold it every other time. So if I have a mountain here, valley next, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain. Just cut right to the center. Mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain. Mountain, valley, mountain. You might have to help it a little bit. Valley, mountain, valley, mountain. And we actually only need 3 circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the circles. Like I said, you should, in fact, I'll just tape that just to hold it shut for demonstration purposes. So this one, we're going to use a tape runner. And we're just going to put plenty of it on there to make sure that it holds down. I'm going to use that score mark to position my circle. And I'm going to use this line to line up with the fold going that direction. So you're basically centering the circle on the lid. And the size is perfect because when you open and shut that envelope, it fits right in there. So to make the pop-up component, what you do next is I like to use an open edge in the center. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue runner right on this top. I've got the open edge here down at the bottom. I'm going to put that point right in the center. I'm going to line it up with the folds on the circle that I've attached on here. Just like so. And then I'm going to add a little more tape to the top. And then I'm just going to fold that lid down, holding it together so that it doesn't come apart. And get that to attach to the back of the envelope. And so you have your first part of that component, of that pop-up. And I'm going to do the same, only opposite. So I'm going to have the open edge this time facing towards the left. And I'm going to add a little bit of tape to the back. I'm using permanent tape, by the way. And I'm just matching that up in the center. Doesn't have to be exact, but I'm just aligning it with the fold lines on that base circle. And then I'm gonna add a little more tape and fold down my envelope. And there is our pop-up component for our card. Moving on, we're going to work on our die cuts. So we're going to bring those in, and I'm keeping my pad here because I'm going to do a little coloring on a couple of the pieces that we're going to use. I love this mushroom, so I want to put that together first. And I've got some Barely Art glue here. I'm going to back up just a tiny bit. On the mushroom, because of where it's positioned on here, I want to put the caps on both sides so you can see it whether it's folded or not. So I'm going to, I think I'll start with a white one. I'm going to just add some glue to the back of that. And I just use little dots so that I don't have glue squirting out all over the place. And I'm just going to continue putting this little guy together. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. Okay, that's it for all of the gluing. I thought I'd do all of that at one time, and then I'm going to go on to coloring some of the different components. Now for the coloring, I think I'm just going to use the ink that's already on some of my brushes. We'll see how that works. But I'm going to start with my pumpkin. and I'm just using my brown brush. I am using Distress Oxide brushes. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of shading to give the pumpkin some dimension. And I'm going to do that on both sides because he may stick up a little bit. Okay, so I think all of our little die cuts are ready to add to our pop-up now. I think I'm going to begin by adding what I want to be the focal point, my mushroom. So I'm going to just basically kind of hold the pieces where I think I want to put them and then add some glue. Okay, so we've got all of our little die cut pieces on, and now we need to fasten the envelope together. And you'll have noted that as I was adding the little pieces on, I wanted to make sure that everything folded down. It is important to show a little bit and take a look at how it looks from the outside when it's closed as well, because you want it to be kind of pretty. And so I'm just going to fold this down and make sure that the sides are underneath our little die cut pieces. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of glue along the edges. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And just hold it down a little bit till it fastens itself to the sides. There we go. Now all that's left is our sentiment. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to make a better press sentiment. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Got this little scrap. And I thought I'd use that die that comes with the set. So I'm just doing that to get an idea of where the cardstock needs to be. Got my better press, well loved already, you can see. And here I've got my sentiments. Like I said, I think I'm going to use just a note to say thanks. Here it is. And then maybe this one to take, not to take away from the design too much. Okay, so we're going to ink up. And I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. And now I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. There's our darling little tag. And I'm just going to bring back my pad one more time. And I'm going to use the same old brown brush. And I'm just going to, I think I want a little bit darker brown. I just want it to look a little more weathered. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's more like what I wanted. Okay, now let's see if this twine will fit through that hole. 6 inches will do. I'm just going to put one end through. And then I think I'm just going to fasten that up underneath. I'm going to tie it. Just tie a knot in the twine so that it stays together. I'm going to trim off the ends. I've got some mini dots here, and I'm just going to place one of those on the back side of that. I like to cut them off in little pieces like that. So I'm just going to fasten that to the back side of that twine. And I'm going to press it real good. And then remove the backing paper. And so the glue dot is now stuck to my twine. And I'm going to fasten that in, placing it with my tweezers. And there we have it. Our pretty little pop-up. That's it for today. Please check out my blog because I'm going to be making more of these little pop-up cards with more of the Spellbinders Wonder series, and I'll be excited to share that with you. Also, I've got the quantities of the different pieces that you need to cut spelled out there as well. I also have the supplies listed down below in the description. And if you like this video and others that I have, please click on the subscribe button and click on the bell to let you know whenever I publish a new video. Thanks again for joining, and bye for now.